Good evening, welcome back. This week's Shout from the Shed is on the subject of session musicians, and we get asked a lot by young musicians, how do you become a session musician then? What do you have to do to be a successful session musician? So I thought it would be useful to give some tips, and if you follow my advice, you will certainly become a successful session musician. Okay, let's deal with this one step at a time. First things first, your entrance is absolutely crucial. Shamble into the studio reception area at least an hour late, leer at the receptionist, and preferably while dribbling slightly, demand, "Where's the session then?" She will direct you to one of the studios, or if it's a smaller studio complex, the studio. Don't go into the live room, head straight for the control room. This is important, this is where the action is. Shove the door open. With any luck they will have started without you. Tap the engineer on the shoulder and advise him, a bit more 1K on that bass drum, mate, I think. And then head for the phone. Call your dealer and get him down to the studio. A good supply of Class A controlled substances is absolutely crucial to the success of your first session. At this point, it's probably a good idea to introduce yourself to the producer. He may give you some instructions. Best to ignore them, really. Okay, let's move on to the next step, which is your equipment. This is very, very important, and a bit of care and preparation at home is essential. I've got a list here, I've made up a list for you, and it's crucial that you follow all the points on this list. First of all, loosen all screws, handles and plugs. Adjust them until you have a rattle or a buzz on every possible frequency in the spectrum from 20 Hz up to 20 kHz. A number of very good graphic equalizers are available on the market for exactly this purpose. I suggest you invest in either a hardware one or the plug-in version. If you're a guitarist or bass player, adjust the intonation on your instrument to ensure that there's at least a quarter tone difference between the bottom and the top of the fretboard. If you have a tremolo arm fitted, slacken all the lock nuts and loosen all the fittings. Again, rattles are important here. Fit dead batteries in all your effects pedals. Check for earth loops. This is crucial. If you don't have an earth loop, consult a friend who wants to be an electrician but couldn't quite manage the GCSEs. I'm sure he can sort you one out. Okay, so we've dealt with our equipment. Now we come to the essence of being a session musician, the music. This is the nub of the matter, the crux of it, the raison d'etre. This is what you're here for. The producer or musical director will generally give you a piece of paper, sometimes even several pieces, with strange markings and scribblings on the paper. Place this on a music stand and look at it very, very closely. As soon as it becomes clear that you don't understand it, don't be fooled into asking the piano player to play the hard bits so that you can learn them. Take the pieces of paper with you, stride into the control room, slam the paper down on the desk, and say to the producer, "I'm not playing this shit. Listen, this is what it should be like. I'm going to play this." Producers like musicians who contribute ideas to their sessions. He'll remember you, that's for sure. Okay, so having settled on what you're going to play, don't be tempted to go and practice it like all the other goody-goody players. You don't need that practice. You're a cut above them. And anyway, it spoils your spontaneity. What you should do now is get one of the cans of beer you brought with you, open it, preferably over the desk, take a large swig, offer it around while cracking a few well-chosen jokes about herpes and other orally transmitted diseases. This will help put everyone at their ease, because people tend to be a little tense on sessions sometimes. Okay, so you've got through your session thanks to the careful preparation that I've given you. You only made 7 mistakes, not bad. Again, march into the control room, announce that you have no intention of repairing anything at all. Man, it's the feel that's important. You sit there picking nits. Dig the feel, man. Now comes the task of ensuring that you get booked back. You have to ingratiate yourself with the producer, the engineer, the artist, and anybody else who you think might be important. So again, head for the control room and declare your intention of hanging around for the mix. Open another can of special brew, do any drugs that your dealer may have bought, don't forget to pass them round, and grab a chair. Position your chair right beside the engineer at the desk. Here you can make occasional sorties into the knobs and switches, adding a bit of reverb to the bass drum, panning the click track. The engineer will be impressed. Not many musicians have the confidence to make this kind of sally into the mixing console. At odd moments, turn round and fix the producer with a steely glare and frown. This will make him think that you've spotted something he hasn't. Don't forget to encourage him, though, as well, occasionally flinging your arms in the air and shouting, "Woo!" Doing the quiet bits is a good idea. Finally, insist that everyone takes your phone number, MySpace page, Facebook link and becomes friends in all your social networking sites, and pausing only to deposit some saliva in the receptionist's ear, sweep out of the studio. You've done well. One more thing, invoicing. This is tricky. Many grown men have fallen by the wayside here when it comes to invoicing. There is a simple rule to remember here. If you're expensive, you must be good. Assume that the cheque will be 2 months late, add interest accordingly, charge triple union rate, plus overdubs, plus porterage, plus camp fare, plus drugs, and a penalty fee because they started without you. Never admit to having been late, by the way. It's a good idea to be familiar with how to change the system clock on your digital diary or computer or PDA or whatever you use to keep your diary, to prove that at the time they called you, you did actually enter it as 11 o'clock, not 10 o'clock. If you have to chase payments up, and sometimes you do have to do this, surprisingly, you can intimidate the smaller companies by phoning them up and asking for their accounts department when you know perfectly well it's just one guy in a loft in Soho. In the case of larger companies, probably no point in chasing them up because nobody knows A, who you are, B, who booked you, C, who the artist was that you were booked to perform for, or D, how much you've invoiced for. Forget it. Sooner or later, something will turn up. Well done, you've become a session musician. Enjoy.